Arnaud is one of the brightest and fastest sprinters in the world. The Belgian national champion is absolutely an incredible talent and has proven that already despite being very young. And I happen to be rolling around on the Coll de Rates, and here I came past none other than Arnaud on a very easy ride, so I decided to try and get on his wheel and see how long I could last. We see here in front of me there is the Belgian national kit, that beautiful national jersey, and I was just making sure to get on his wheel because how many times can you be on the wheel of a national champion from Belgium as well? But you can see the watts are not too high here, so it's definitely an easy ride for him. The weather was fairly good, but yeah, here on the easiest slopes of the climb, and it wasn't too straining for myself, but he was clearly not going all out. As we know, Arnaud, just a phenomenal talent and has won so many races already, but here he was just making sure to take it easy, and yeah, even amateurs passing him, but he was clearly not going all out. 250 watts is not the highest watts he can do on this kind of climb. Easy day, and it was pretty comfortable just to sit on his wheel. As you can see, other pros going down the hill, but Coll de Rates, or Coll de Rates, Coll de Rates, whatever you want to call the climb, is very famous to have pros. CYCLIST bike rider even passing there, and you can see Arnaud, who is very open to a chat as well on the climb. But yeah, it was interesting to sit on his wheel just to see what I would guess a Zone 2 ride is here for the Belgian national champion. But yeah, the climb itself, it isn't the hardest climb in the world. It has sections of around 6-7%, but it's a great climb to just sit and do a comfortable effort here. And the weather was pretty good, so why not? And you can even see there a pro car, I think it was Cometa, on the side of the road. But the Belgian national champion, of course, preparing for a big season, and here just, yeah, a very low threshold ride, and no exertions were pushed. He's of course not a climber, he's a sprinting sensation. He's good on the more lumpy terrain, but he's not great on the mountains, as he's a specialist. He's a classics rider, he's a sprinter. But here, yeah, the Zone 2, you can still see it's around 230, 240, and yes, my cadence is very, very low. I'm not going the same cadence as you can see there with Arnaud, the Lotto rider, but you can still see, despite the weather being around 16 degrees, these riders are more comfortable in a bit hotter temperatures, and you can see that he's wearing quite a few layers there. But yeah, I was doing a lot lower cadence than he was at this point. But Arnaud, absolutely sensational talent here. And here we're coming up to more of the interesting part of the climb, where it starts to get towards the finish. But yeah, the tempo was still fairly low, around the 200 to 250 mark. So a fairly comfortable Zone 2, and you can just see CYCLIST bike's car passing. And yeah, fairly comfortable here. The ride, nothing too special. He wasn't doing efforts, he wasn't doing intervals, it wasn't a tempo ride. It was clearly just an easy ride, and is why it was so comfortable to sit on the wheel. And yeah, not the greatest watts, but Zone 2, there's been a lot of talk about Zone 2 rides and how important it is. And yeah, I think here we're seeing the national champion, and there you see CYCLIST bike as well passing on the downhill. And yeah, just we just sat in here, and now we're getting up to the bit more heavier section in terms of the gradients. We're nearing it after this bend, and then we're going to see if the watts actually does translate to that. But every time there was a bit of flat or the easier sections, it was around the 200 and 250 mark. But Arnaud, such an absolute champion at such a young age, and just, yeah, trying to stick with him. It was fairly comfortable, as we know. But Arnaud, big fan myself. I think many people are big fans of him. The national champion of Belgium is something isn't the easiest to come your way at such a young age, and then being able to do it, and yeah, being the spearhead for the Lotto team as well. And here we're coming around the more easier part. It kicks up again in a bit, but Coll de Rates or Coll de Rates, we've spoken about that so many times on the Cycling Extra channel. We weren't coming anywhere near of Tadej Pogacar's time, obviously, but you can see that here there's another bend coming before we get into another bend, and then we have the hardest section of the climb where it kicks up a bit. But there's a reason why this is one of the favorite climbs for the pros in this area. It's a good effort. It's not too hard. It's not over 6-7% all the way up. It's more towards the 5%. And we're getting up to the hardest section here with Arnaud. And yeah, Arnaud, what an absolute champion here. But here it's more of an easier section here, 4% according to 3%. And beautiful views all the way up, but still the watts were increasing a bit here. You can see 200, almost the 300 mark. What his FTP is anyone's guess. I could probably estimate more than 360 potentially, but that is just me guessing. And here we're coming up to the hardest section of the climb in a way, and this is where maybe the watts were going to go through the roof a bit, but not really. 280 watts and 280 watts, yeah, that's pretty good, but he's probably still in his zone 2, I would imagine. But yeah, we heard that Tadej Pogacar's zone 2 is 320 to 340, so we're not really anywhere near that. And here it's the harder section of the climb right now. I was just making sure that I was actually filming. And yeah, Arnaud here, this is the more harder section. I think you can see 8% here, and he's still in the saddle, very comfortable. I was a bit out of the saddle at this point, but I was in the big ring. That's just my style. It's nothing to do with his style, but he's spinning very, very nicely here, making sure that he was keeping a tidy cadence and still having enough time to just talk with the fan next to him. But 270 there, 10 miles an hour. It's not the fastest speed. Comparing that to Tadej Pogacar, was going more than double that with his team for the KOM. But obviously, as we said, zone 2, not a KOM attempt. But yeah, still a decent pace. And you saw another Visma Lease bike car there. 250 there, and we're coming up towards the open section of the climb in terms of the left-hand side. And this is a very, very nice section. 6% here, but it does kick up a bit further into this, but still fairly comfortable. Nothing is happening really in terms of the watts. It's hovering between 240 to around 300, and yeah, it's fairly comfortable. This section here is where it gets a bit sluggish. You can see his cadence is starting to decrease a bit, 7% there, but yeah, it's fine. Still zone 2, 250, 260. And it just gives you an insight of what a zone 2, 11% here, you can see that. And it gives us an insight of like what the pros do. It's always nice to see what training looks like for them, because that is something as cycling fans we don't really think about. We more think about the celebrations, the wins, but we don't really see them working hard in Calpe, for example, or in Mallorca or wherever. But yeah, still on the national champions wheel here. Arnaud is such an exquisite champion, and you could just see nothing really, no efforts, but it was still fairly comfortable for him. And yeah, having enough energy to still do conversations when it's 250, and that van was very close there. But yeah, 8 miles an hour, 250 watts, 10% here, so a fairly interesting percentage in terms of this climb. This is the harder section of the climb where it really kicks up a bit. We had the 11% before, and you can see Arnaud still getting out of the saddle for the first time, 11% here. But the steepness doesn't continue. We never have 10% or 11% for that long here on Coll de Rates, but it's a beautiful climb. And Arnaud there, you can see my watts just kicked up to 300. Obviously my watts don't equate to his watts, so maybe he might be pushing a bit more or a bit less, but I have no idea how much he weighs in comparisons to me. But Yeah, very comfortable zone 2 ride here for him, for me, for everyone. 10%, 11%, 12% kicking up there, and you can see other riders going for efforts there and passing us. But Arnaud, very comfortable, and of course 2025 is going to be a big year for him with so many races on the line, already having won in 2025, but can he win many more this year? That is the big question. Can he get a Grand Tour stage? Can he get a Classics win? Well, he has many, but can he get an even bigger one? That remains to be seen. A candidate for Milan-San Remo, we think that for sure, but this is just a unique insight of what his training looks like outside of racing. And he did have a crash as well in one of his trainings earlier in the year as well, so seeing him here, yeah, after the crash, very fit and very strong for the coming year. But yeah, this was just giving an insight of what it is like to train with Arnaud, the absolutely maestro when it comes to sprints, classics and everything. The national champion of Belgium, what a superstar, and yeah, what a delight it was to be on the back wheel of such a champion. But anyways, that's basically it for this video. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already here on the Action channel, and I hope to see you again in the next one. And of course, as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.